Hi, my little Leapfrog Milches, and welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. It's Friday, lots happening in the world. God only knows. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I want to utilize the platform that I have that would be kind of nice for a change to be able to share some video that I think is, shall we say, timely. And I'm going to share the link online now in case anybody wants to actually watch this program live, which I know people have many better things to do than that. And into the studio we go. And I'll look at the chat. And do we have the actual link to the show that I can put on?
Yeah. Hold on. I was
YouTube.
waiting for the.
So that way I can, anybody who wants to join in would be able to join in. Thank you. I appreciate it very much, Brian. Good man. I appreciate that. And
link to the link.
Yep. And now I'll just go over to the YouTube channel and throw that in. And there you go. All right. I wanted to look back at something historical because to be honest, there's always a story to be told. And I look at the age group, the demographic who watches the program, and it's wide and varied, but there are some who are young who don't really remember, and the Browns fans don't remember all the things that kind of have gone down over the years with the franchise. So what I've done is I wanted to start out with some simple kinds of stuff, all right? Like if you don't know what Bottlegate was, okay? And we're gonna do some screen sharing here. And I'm hoping that you can read this with me, but basically this is the gist of it. Was that against in week 14 with the Browns tentatively trying in their second year as an expansion football team to make the playoffs. The Browns were losing 15-10 with 1:08 remaining with a 4th and 2. Tim Couch took the snap, passed to Quincy Morgan, who allegedly caught the ball at the 3-yard line, which replays would show that he did not. He actually bobbled the ball and it did touch the ground. However, after calling the completed pass complete, Couch ran up to the line of scrimmage and spiked the ball with 48 seconds remaining. However, the officials decided they were going to review the 4th down conversion play 2 plays earlier, proceed to overturn it, giving the ball to the Jaguars. All right. It became known as Bottlegate because fans threw bottles out of the stands at the officials and littered the field. And this is not, it's not something that at the time a lot of Browns fans were, shall we say, being belittled by people for what they did. All right. I can do this for you so that you can see there's Butch Davis, old coach of the Browns.
You got to end the game. The fans are throwing crap on the field. Especially when you consider how big of a game this was.
Are you getting sound on this?
Yes.
Well, I'll be anxious to hear the official explanation of the way that replay situation came down, because once another play is run, you can't go back.
And these officials really need to get off the field.
And you know what? The fans got to stop throwing crap. We just saw a guy get hit in the head and he's down, split his head wide open. The fans have got to control themselves. People are getting hurt. It's ridiculous. You're only hurting yourselves by throwing stuff on the field.
And the officials are pummeled as they head into the locker room. And Butch Davis is speechless. He doesn't know what to say or what to do.
All right. So that's a visual representation of what happened in 2001. Now, there is a preamble to that the Cleveland Browns were a perfectly fine football franchise that ended up moving to Baltimore, and Cleveland lost its football franchise for 5 years. And what we were granted in return was an expansion team, and an expansion team that did not have enough time to assemble a proper front office and was given absolutely no break by the NFL as far as draft picks or compensation. The Browns were able to pick players who were being discarded off every roster in the NFL, making them instantly the worst football team in the league.
I believe the teams were allowed to keep or protect 30 players.
Right. And so
on their 53-man rosters.
Right. And realistically, what was left over were a lot of special teams guys. And if you're old enough to remember the 99 Browns, you know what it was like. They weren't good, and they couldn't be good because they had no team speed. And, you know, they had Derek Chiaverini as a wide receiver. And, you know, it was bad. The team was just not good. So they would lose week after week after week. And with that losing, by the time this game, when the Browns were 6-6 in week 14 of the season, this was considered a successful year that was really capped off by this horrible decision by the officials. Well, there's much more to come here. And this is going to be of even more interest. And this is going to take a little time, folks, so bear with me. What you're going to see is the Cleveland Browns being screwed by referees and the history thereof, not including Bottlegate, but since Bottlegate. Here we go.
So example number 1 comes from Week 13, 2007, Browns at Cardinals. In here, Browns quarterback Derek Anderson's going to drop back and throw up a bomb intended for Kellen Winslow. And this is the last play of the game. And as you see, Winslow catches it, but he's clearly pushed out of bounds by Arizona's defenders. And this was back when the force-out rule was still in effect in the NFL. And what the force-out rule was is, if a player caught the ball but he was clearly forced out of bounds by the defenders, it would be ruled a force-out. And here, I just don't get how they don't call that. Because look, he still manages to get one foot in bounds. And I mean, Winslow was a very athletic guy, so he definitely could have got both feet in bounds. But they did not call it, and that was that. And this is in 2007, the Browns missed out on the playoffs by one game. So unbelievable.
These are all like winning seasons, by the way.
Example number 2 comes from Week 6, 2009, Browns at Steelers. Otherwise known as the day the Browns-Steelers rivalry died. I hope you get the reference. But what we have here is, on 4th down, Ben Roethlisberger did a QB sneak, and the officials are measuring to see whether or not he got a first down. So they're doing the measurement right now, and they put the stick down. And call me crazy, but is that not short of the first down marker? I mean, that's a pretty sizable gap between the football and the first down marker. You can see a lot of grass there. But inexplicably, the Steelers are given a first down. Very strange. I don't know how to explain that one.
I do.
Example number 3 comes from Week 14, 2013, Browns at Patriots. And this was just a sickening loss. The Browns were up 12 points with like a minute left, but of course found a way to lose. And a big reason they lost was because of this play right here. First down from the 30, Tom Brady drops back, throws a bomb to the end zone. And look at that, a bullshit pass interference
Lawrence
call.
McCutcheon.
Excuse my language, but just unbelievable. How do you make that call there? That just changes the entire game. And look, there was like a tad bit of contact, sure, but you cannot call that right there. I mean, set the Patriots up at the 1-yard line and they went ahead for the go-ahead score. It's like, just that stuff right there leads people to think the NFL's rigged.
Nah.
Like, again, I'm not saying it's rigged. I don't think it is. But, like, if you're the NFL, like, you gotta know what this is going to result in. And that was actually the last time the Browns played in New England. And funny enough, their next game is at New England. So if there are any Browns players listening to this, please get redemption for this game. This is honestly
This guy
top 3
is not
worst
a Browns
losses since
fan, by the
99.
way.
Example number 4 comes from Week 12, 2015, Ravens at Browns. Now this was the famous Kick 6 game. And what you see here is Browns kicker Travis Coons is going to attempt a 51-yard field goal for the win. Now his kick gets blocked, and the Ravens pick it up and return it for a touchdown. How about that? But did you notice that one of the Ravens players jumped off sides before the kick? And the guy who picked it up and ran down the sideline, it looked like he stepped out of bounds. You see that right there? But both of those did not get called. The offsides didn't get called, and the stepping out of bounds did not get called. Now, either way, I'm not going to jump on the officials for this one because there is no reason the Browns should have allowed this to happen. Just totally inexcusable and embarrassing.
So it's
honestly,
our fault.
I blame the Browns more than I blame the refs here. But anyway, that's that. Example number 5 comes from Week 2, 2016. Ravens at Browns again.
Always in our home
what we have
stadium,
here
you notice?
is the Browns trail by 5, so they need a touchdown to win the game. And they actually have all the
No, the
momentum.
Patriots game was on the road.
First downs, and they really were threatening to score. And eventually, Josh McCown throws a completion to Terrell
Josh
Pryor.
McCown.
But after the completion, Terrell Pryor flicks the ball, and it hits the Ravens guy in the helmet. And as a result, he gets a taunting penalty there. Unbelievable. How do you make this call? It just changes the entire game, just like the Patriots game earlier. And like, I'm not being a homer here. It just, to me, it didn't even look like he was taunting the guy. Like, wouldn't he have been looking at him if it was a taunt? He just was trying to hand the ball to
he's tossing the ball to the fucking ref.
Official. I think after the game, Hugh Jackson said something like, "We got to do a better job handing the ball to the refs." It's not funny, but still, just a call here. Like I said, it just makes people think that the referees are doing nefarious things.
Nah.
But whatever.
Plenty more where this came from.
Now, example number 6 actually comes a few weeks later in Washington. This is Browns at Redskins, Week 4, 2016. And this one is just, I'm sure all of you are familiar with this one. Joe Thomas tweeted the other day he still has PTSD from this, and I totally agree with him. I still wake up in the middle of the night sweating sometimes from this. But what we have here is at a very critical point in the game, Duke Johnson takes the handoff, picks up the first down, but does fumble, which he was known to do from time to time. But he comes out of the pile holding the football, so he clearly recovered the football here. I mean, he's holding it up for everybody to see. And the Browns players are screaming at the officials like, "Hey, look, we have the football." But they aren't looking for whatever reason. And they signal that the Redskins recovered. I mean, oh my God, this is just... Again, if I'm not saying the NFL is rigged, I really don't believe it is. But stuff like this leads people to think it is. So this is just baffling stuff that nobody has an explanation for. And I actually don't remember what the official explanation was. I don't even remember if they addressed it the next day, but just despicable what happened here.
But wait, there's more.
Example number 7 comes from Week 4, 2018, Browns at Raiders. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with this one. This is the infamous Carlos Hyde ball spot overturn, whatever you want to call it. And just to give some context here, the Browns are up by 8, and all they need to do is pick up a first down, and they essentially end the game because they can just run out the time, or run out the clock. And Carlos Hyde takes the handoff, and at first glance appears to have picked up the first down. Now the referee does go under the hood to take a second look at it, which is fine. But he comes back from under the hood, and guess what? He says that Carlos Hyde is short of the first down marker. What a surprise. Of course, in the National Football League, there has to be conclusive evidence to overturn any call, and any novice can tell you that this was not conclusive evidence. I mean, how in the world do you say he was short of the first down marker here? Now, the only thing I can possibly think of was, if you look at this angle right here, Carlos Hyde's hand does hit the grass right there. It appears to hit the grass, and the ball appears to be short. But if you look at this angle, it's clear his hand did not hit the grass. So that angle is very deceiving. And as you see, when his elbow hits the ground there, to me it looks like the ball is clearly crossed the first down marker. So, again, I don't know what the hell they saw there. And like I've been criticizing the NFL for this entire video, calls like this just create conspiracy theories.
No.
Because I remember after this game, a popular conspiracy theory was that the league was protecting their buddy John Gruden from going 0-4, because had the Raiders lost this game, they would have dropped to 0-4. So, and of course the Raiders ended up winning this game, and just unbelievable. But anyway, let's move on. Example number 8 just comes a few weeks later, actually. This is Week 6, 2018, Chargers at Browns.
We can't let
And what we
Baker
have here is
Mayfield
a
get
Chargers
good,
offensive
now can
lineman,
we?
Clear as day, jumping off sides in front of all the officials, but it does not get called, and it actually led
This
to
is
a Chargers
incredible.
touchdown right there. And that was a huge momentum swing in the game, so just inexcusable, very inexcusable. Now, to the NFL's credit, they did fire this official just a few weeks later,
yeah.
so props to the NFL for that.
Whoop-de-doo. We still got the
Justice-
And our last
Justice
example
is
comes
served.
from Week 7, 2018, so just the following week, actually.
Oh,
And this
really?
is Browns at Buccaneers.
Oh, and Baker's
And what we
coming.
have here is Baker Mayfield's going to take it himself. And this is a pretty good run on his part, about 30 to 35 yards. And then he's going to slide, clearly giving
34.
himself up. But then he gets drilled in the head by one of Tampa Bay's players. Clear helmet-to-helmet contact. And what's strange is there's no penalty on the play. And what makes it even weirder is the referee goes on the PA system and says the runner was allowed to get hit in the head, which is baffling to say the least because, I mean, everybody knows it's frowned upon the past 10 to 15 years to hit a player in the head, because of the whole concussion stigma. But it's allowed to take place here, so I don't know. I don't have words for this one. I mean,
All right, these are historical things, and I see that Stephen is trying to get into the program, and I'm glad I made him wait, actually. All right, let Stephen jump on into the panel here. All right, here's the deal. Did he? Oh, good. He got in. He got in. Okay, good. I think if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, a couple of things happened. First of all, you went from being a storied franchise into being a non-franchise. And then you went to becoming the bottom of the barrel expansion team. And then the Houston Texans, which is interesting that Stephen come in here, just a couple of years later joined the league as an expansion team and got all kinds of benefits and help from the NFL, including draft picks and better player selections that made them a competitive and good football team right out of the chute. While the Cleveland Browns continued to struggle ignominiously, but because of a number of things. One is that the owner of the team died and gave the team to his autistic son, who ran it into the ground along with a soccer team in England later on. And instead of making the team available to be sold away from this idiot, Randy Lerner, that is where the sheer hell began for the Cleveland Browns. They had to dig out from being an expansion franchise. And then the next thing you know, Al Lerner's dead and his autistic son takes over and runs it into the ground. Now, but throughout the years, a lot of self-inflicted wounds for sure. But how do fans react to the Cleveland Browns as the years pass by? Some people just got off the bandwagon altogether and said, fuck it, I'm done with this shit. I don't want to have anything to do with this crap anymore. This team sucks. And it's no fun watching because anytime we get halfway good, these horrible calls, because they didn't even mention the fucking Dwayne Rudd helmet thing, things that literally took place on the field years before that teams were never penalized for, that the Browns got penalized for.
Yep.
So some fans decided to say, fuck it, I'm done. Other fans like me said, enough is enough. And, and witnessing James Harrison and witnessing teams taking cheap shots at the Browns because they were looked upon with such disfavor in the league as whipping boys, literally. The referees were whipping on them and the players started taking cheap shots against the Browns. You wonder why today I want Ben Roethlisberger crippled. The reason is because if you mistreat a group of people for a long enough period of time, there will be a cost to be paid, okay? This is a sports metaphor. And as a fan of the Cleveland Browns, I know what this team's done wrong, and I've talked about it ad nauseum over the course of 16 years I've been doing this shit. And sometimes I hold my head, and nobody would be more critical of Hugh Jackson, or Huey, sorry. Nobody would be more critical of Butch Davis and his Spygate, his own personal, your own personal Spygate, the incompetent coaches that we had, Pat Shurmur, the kumquat, you name it. We've had every person in that position all the way up to, oh my God, Freddie Kitchens. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm more than happy to criticize the team when the team's at fault. But realistically, I don't know if you've ever grown up around a kid who gets beat up in the neighborhood and he becomes the whipping boy and everybody jumps in and punches him to the ground. There is a boy like that in my neighborhood growing up in Canton, Ohio. He lived right next door to me. He was an undersized boy. I have told his story on the air years ago. I'm not going to tell you his name because he's still out there. And there's no reason to bring up bad memories. But this young man grew up and he could not look people in the eye because people literally jumped on him because his father publicly humiliated him in front of kids in the neighborhood. So the kids took note and felt that they had license to do the same thing. And, you know, and pretty soon everybody was beating up on the kid, and it was really sad. It wasn't that he was a bad boy at all, quite to the contrary. But in the end, people took advantage of that.
So kind of like the weakest link kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it makes people feel stronger if they can capitalize on something like that. I don't know, but I do know this, that as a fan of professional sports, if you just took a look at Bottlegate and the announcer saying this has to stop, this is garbage, this is wrong, you know, when you have your franchise literally stolen from you because the owner of the football team's getting incentives from a city that isn't supposed to be negotiating with him and doing an 11th hour deal to move the team out of town and leaving the city without professional football. This, the 1964 world champion franchise, the home of Jim Brown, Bernie Kosar, Brian Sipe, Ozzie Newsome, you know, Gary Collins, Paul Warfield. I mean, you name it. I mean, just a ton of Dick Shafrath. I mean, you name it. This is a franchise of greatness in the NFL. And that's how the fan base was paid back. And, you know, and to keep rubbing it in, over and over again. You take a look at what the field looked like after Bottlegate. It's just a fucking football game. All right. Nobody died. Nobody was murdered. You want to talk about buildings on fire? We're not going to do that on this show, except through a sports metaphor. All right. To explain it to the most simple-minded of you, if that was the reaction over a single football game being taken away from the home team on an egregious call by officials, what would happen if I ran YouTubes of the list of people of color who have been gunned down when they were unarmed by police officers? And if it happened to your people over and over again, you wouldn't be just throwing bottles now, would you? Maybe you would be throwing Molotov cocktails at buildings. Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and defend violence on any level, but try as sports fans to understand, as Cleveland Browns fans, how you have felt through the years watching this happen to your team. And just imagine if it was happening to your race and it was resulting in brutality, the likes of which we've had to witness on video for the past several days. I'm done sharing my screen and I'm done with my little sports metaphor.
And now even when the Browns are competitive now, it seems like the refs are getting involved. It seems like the NFL sort of likes this storyline on the misery of the Browns, and they're kind of cashing in on you know, like there's certain storylines. You got, you know, Brady and Belichick and the cheating regime, and they continue to win. And then you got, you know, certain lines going on, you know, and then you got the Cleveland Browns, same old Browns, you know.
Well, and I think that is part of, like, the kid who was getting beaten up in the neighborhood. Everybody can laugh at the Cleveland Browns because they are also rans. They are whipping boys. And when you get labeled that way, and I always say, and I start out the season, if you want the bad calls to stop, you got to win. And you got to play better football. And the Cleveland Browns didn't earn that because of Freddie Kitchens. They weren't prepared to play. And when you get into a situation like that, you're really going to be exploited because the team looked like they were on the verge of getting better again, and then they came out unprepared. That's the fault of the organization. That's the fault of the head coach.
With all due respect, doesn't it seem like, well, I mean, it kind of seems rigged because even from just the fact that they're not winning games, but they also bring incompetent morons into the organization. Like, how would you allow a con man like Jimmy Haslam to own a Cleveland Brown franchise who's a crook, We
haven't had a legitimate owner since the team came back. I mean, you don't have somebody who had any reason to be the owner of the team, and it has been a problem. But, I always say we live in the age of the conspiracy theory, and I just got done showing you 9 prime examples, including one Roethlisberger sneak that was measured short, and they still right in your face lied about it. You can't tell me that. I mean, I don't need a conspiracy theory, because conspiracy theories are things we're putting together certain pieces of a puzzle in a certain way with a certain conclusive mindset going in. I don't need to do that when my eyes see that the goddamn chain is short and he didn't make it. There is something going on, and part of what's going on is the continued misery of the franchise that is being promoted by the league and being unfortunately propelled by bad decision-making on the part of the organization. And until the team proves that it can overcome and stop shooting itself in the foot too, this kind of crap is going to continue. And hopefully Kevin Stefanski will get this right and get the team out and ready and prepared to play. The headline now saying the majority of NBA general managers are voting to restart the season by going straight to the playoffs. Well, that doesn't really surprise me. Who wants to see the Cavaliers play more games? I mean, you've missed so much of the season anyway. Nobody wants to see that. I know I don't. And nobody cares about the Sacramento Kings or the other 28 teams.
Yeah, you know what I heard that they were going to do with the tournament, the 30-team tournament? If you ever watch the Summer League, how they kind of have like the 1-game elimination. Like they were going to do that with the bottom seeds, and they were going to have it to where there was 1 remaining, and that 1 remaining can challenge the A seed for the final spot. I think essentially, even if they do that, like who's ever going to get that A seed, like if somebody beats Memphis, which would probably like Portland would be the best shot. But if it's any one of those other teams, Memphis would win. If not, maybe Portland wins. But they're not going to beat the number 1 seed Lakers anyway, so it's not going to matter.
Well, I saw today where, I saw an article where they just it was flat out said that they were going to get Zion in this thing no matter what. And currently the Pelicans are not even a top 8 seed, right? They're, I think
they're like 9 or 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they want to do a summer league tournament for the bottom teams, and then the 1 remaining team challenges the A seed. That's what I heard.
Yeah. So I don't know how they're going to get away with that if that's the case.
It gives a March Madness feel to it, but it doesn't matter because the end result is you're going to get swept by whoever the number 1 seed is, which would be the Lakers, and on the East it would be the Bucks. So it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering when the NBA is looking at, they are really talking with the Walt Disney Company about resuming its season at the Disney's ESPN Wide World of Sports complex in Orlando, Florida. And it's going to be interesting because when you go in, I don't know if you've ever been to that complex before, there are wax figures of people like Chris Schenkel. No, I'm kidding. There's
so, Mr. Moohead, do you think they'll be able to do a 7-game series though, and be able to get that done in a timely manner? Because the playoffs alone with that series is going to take at least 2.5-3 months.
They need to go back to the 80s formula where it was a 3-game for the first round, then a 5-game, then a 7-game.
And they do that. They're talking about July 31st. Starting this out, and everything comes to Florida.
Because even if you do 10 games, which that's where it seems like they want to do 10 games and then do a playoff and resume and then have like everybody in the 70s, like the playoffs is going to be like at least 2 to 3 months. Because if it starts in like mid-April and ends in June.
No, you'll have a lot more back-to-back games.
So you're looking at possibly November, December before this thing ends, unless you do it best of 3. Like that's the only way You're playing in the same gym anyway, so what's the point of playing 7 games? You might as well just do the best of 3.
They
Well,
won't get the rest days in between the games.
Here's what
like
they're
they do now.
planning. At least this is what the NBA has on the, on their mind. They're talking about a resumption of the season that will include an initial 2-week recall of players into the individual team marketplaces for a period of quarantine, 1 to 2 weeks of individual workouts at team facilities,
That's a month.
and 2 to 3 week formal training camp. So
nice.
barring any unforeseen turn of events, many owners, executives, and players believe that Silver is going to green light return to play in June, with games expected to resume sometime
in August.
by the end of July.
Yeah, it's going to be August because you're looking at 2 months just by all the calculations. That's 2 months.
Yeah. So, and they're talking July 31st.
And how many games are they going to do? And then what's the playoffs going to be? And then when you add that, if it's going to be the best of 7, like I said, you're looking at 3 months just for that. And that's not including the games they're going to play before that.
Yeah. But as far as how long it takes, one thing that I've learned, the rich get richer in America, and there is no reason why the NFL won't have the little secret Ivy League handshake with the NBA. I mean, let's be honest about this. Baseball's out in the cold. Nobody gives a fuck about it. But basketball, less so, but football is the granddaddy here. And if people are used to their season beginning just a little bit before Labor Day right now, that's what it has been anyway. So if the NFL moves it back a month, to make room for this little extra time for the NBA, I'm sure that there's the Ivy League handshake that can get this done.
That means the NBA is going to have games every day.
Look, I mean, whatever is needed, and the players will do it because, it's fame and it's,
I'm wondering how it's going to pan out, though, because if you're going to do a 30-team playoff, it's going to be, I'm up for it, but it's just with all this time off, it almost seems more right to just cancel the season and just start all over like next year.
No, there's money involved and nobody wants to lose the season completely. And the NFL is going to need time because things have fallen so far behind. We're getting ready to go into June right now, and players are flat out of shape. And there would be so many soft tissue injuries. If you tried to get this, up and running now, for a regular season start in the beginning of September, people would not be prepared. You wouldn't have a preseason. You wouldn't.
Oh yeah, and by the way, James Harden put on some weight. I saw some photos of him today. God, you look like Santa Claus.
Yeah, it really is. And
or
for
Sean
football,
Kemp.
For Santa Claus doing a step back, so you're going to see Santa Claus doing the Euro step.
And I'd hate to think what Zion looks like.
Uncle Drew.
You might blow out both shoes.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep him tied by ropes to the ground. Enter him into.
I'm wondering if they're going to do 12-minute quarters, or they're going to shorten it down to 8 or 6 or something.
I just don't think that they can do something like that. That would just so delegitimize the whole thing. And
then they might as well just scrap the season. And
I believe so. But where money's involved, that's
not just declare them all the champion, do a participation trophy, and just call it even.
Yeah, it's not whenever money's involved.
Asterisks to cover this season the way it's going.
One of the things I also wanted to point out in America, and if I sound like I'm not patriotic, it's because I'm not anymore. I think the country's in big trouble. If you didn't see the news that Hertz Rent-A-Car had filed for bankruptcy, and they had been laying off a lot of employees leading up, and they finally fired 1,000 more people in addition to all the other people that they fired. But it turned out that the week before the 1,000 layoffs that they threw at their remaining workers, that they had written a check for $16.2 million to give to the executives just to make sure that they were okay during the course of the downtime of the pandemic. So in essence, all of those laborers lost their jobs so a few men could share
And their benefits.
$6.2 million. That's right. This isn't capitalism, folks. This is you know, the land barons and the serfs.
Mr. Mued, it's no different than these banks that are getting bailouts, paying their CEOs bonuses while making the restrictions harder on getting loans and adding interest on top of it, making the interest higher. So I mean,
so Rox, what did the AT&T CEO get?
A $64 million pension.
They fired him. They fired him. Is that right?
Well, they just said that they parted ways. So
basically, they let him keep the check and they just told him you got to resign.
Someday love will find you. Break those chains that bind you.
I'll resign for $64 million.
yeah, they said that he retired. He's
Oh,
59,
I bet.
59 years old, $64 million pension.
Oh, he cashed out on it.
Yeah. 59 years old. I mean, and if you knew how many people, AT&T has laid off more than 25% of their workforce. I mean, and this is what makes all of us skeptical about so many things. Why there are so many conspiracy theories?
Yep. Because
quite honestly, this isn't capitalism anymore. Whatever's happening in the country is all predicated upon the rich getting richer. And
it's socialism. It's socialism within capitalism. Like I actually saw a documentary.
No, it's actually more like vultures.
I mean, it's just criminal.
Well, if you have the top of the top and the money's going around in there, that is socialism in a sense, but just at a corporate level.
Yeah. So I don't think the NFL or the NBA or anyone is going to do anything that's going to, they're going to try to recoup their investment just as well as they can.
Mr. Mued, and then also when you have a lot of these companies that are too big to fail, asking for a bailout, they never have to save for a rainy day. They got lobbyists they pay off to fight for them to make it to where smaller business owners cannot catch up or anything like that. You don't think that's socialism?
Yeah, I mean, look what Major League Baseball did. I mean, the teams were laying off their minor leaguers. He flat out laying them off. It's like, oh, we don't give a shit about the farm.
1,000 of them, I guess, what I heard.
Fucking farm team. What do I care?
And here again, you're talking about people that take care of the lawns, all of the concessions, all of the
maintenance,
all the ticket takers, all that kind of shit.
Yeah, I have a friend that basically is the concessions like manager of the Dayton Dragons, and she was living pretty well, and well, now she's out of a job basically.
Oh, that sucks.
So
yeah, I mean,
Durham has lost its allure.
And David Price has stepped up to pay Dodgers minor leaguers $1,000 each amid COVID-19. And, you know, the interesting thing is all these minor leaguers getting laid off, and, you know, $1,000 may not sound like very much. The sad part of it is that David Price didn't even get to put his autograph on the checks. All right. Tongue firmly, very firmly in cheek.
Right or left?
Either that or
that would be the posterior cheek there, boy.
So here's the deal. Why do the Browns still have so much cap space? Now, this was a question that was asked on Cleveland.com. And, you know, it's really interesting, you know, because they have more cap space than any team in the NFL. All right.
Part of this is for 2020. I don't know what it is in relation to last season, but the new salary cap is per team is $196.8 million.
Well, here's the beauty of it. The Browns, their best players are still on rookie deals. This is the single greatest reason why they don't have expensive guys yet. All right. To put it in perspective, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett are still playing on their first contracts. That makes a huge difference right there.
Chubb, yeah.
Yep. And,
Garrett still, or-
and so now Jedrick Wills joins the list. Larry Ogunjobi is a free agent after this season. Greedy Williams, so, he's got a deal going through 2022. Get this. The worse you draft, you don't have big contracts. Think of it this way. You keep drafting people high, they don't make the team. So they never get to their 5th-year deal, and they never get to the point where you have to pay them a lot of money. So 5th-year options on Myles Garrett and David Njoku was the first time they used that benefit on a homegrown player since Phil Taylor in 2011. This will tell you how bad the drafting is. Phil fucking Taylor. I mean,
Well, I think I mentioned too on the show a month back or so that when we re-signed Higgins, that was the first wide receiver that the Browns have re-signed since I think 99 that they drafted. So again, it goes into that same theory.
right. So I mean, the worse you draft, the more cap space you're going to have because you're just simply not spending money. You look at some of the players they've picked: Trent Richardson, Brandon Weeden, Barkevius Mingo, Justin Gilbert, Johnny Manziel, Danny Shelton, Cam Irving, and Corey Coleman. I mean, can you imagine if any one of these people had turned out to be anything, they wouldn't have the most cap space in the NFL. But the fact of the matter is, so this is what I'm talking about.
Ironically, most of them have won Super Bowls with other teams like the Patriots. And the
Yeah,
Chiefs.
I mean, shooting yourself in the foot is all part of this new, Browns post 1999 legacy. But it isn't like the Browns haven't shelled out money. I mean, guys like Kevin Zeitler, they paid big money for. J.C. Treader, they paid good money for. Jarvis Landry and OBJ, they spent big money on. Olivier Vernon, they spent big money on. Sheldon Richardson, $37 million. And now Austin Hooper and Jack Conklin. It isn't that they're not spending money. This is not a matter of going Dolan on our asses. This is just a matter of sheer incompetence in drafting that hopefully will eventually get squared away. But I thought it was funny when, people start acting like, well, look at the great position we're in because, we have more
and
cap space.
this is one of the things that I have to argue with these morons that want Jadeveon Clowney signed. It's like, okay, do you understand that he wants a 6-year deal? By the time you get into 3, 4, 5, 6, you're paying Baker Mayfield $35, $38, $40 million a year. You're paying Denzel Ward $18, $20, $22 million a year. All of a sudden, your free cap space don't fucking exist.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it
Interesting, too,
adds up quick.
Interesting too that Clowney has the same agent as Myles Garrett.
Oh boy, yeah.
So
Well,
Yeah.
supposedly
Thank you.
Clowney has no interest in the Browns, which is thank God.
yeah.
Imagine if both never going rogue on the field at the same time.
And then there's this. Andrew Berry has put the finishing touches on his personnel staff. We knew that Ryan Grigson was going to get a title, and he is now the Browns' senior football advisor. He also hired Rod Streeter. Do you remember him, the guy who never really played for the Browns? Yeah. They added him as a scouting assistant so he can find people as bad as he was. But, they have a list.
Well, what's the old saying? Those who can't do, teach.
But, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, Ryan Grigson is senior football advisor. Charles Walls is the national scout. Josh Cox, he's the big Cox. Northwest area scout. Nate Sturkin, the lead data scientist. That's beautiful. I don't know. Lead data scientist. That's analytics, man.
He's the one that gets to wear the pocket protector in his shirt.
Yeah. Andrew Jackson. There's got to be a
that sounds
historical. There's got to be a. What was it? Tippecanoe and Tyler
right?
too? Is that what it was?
Tippecanoe and Tyler too.
Yeah.
Jackson's name was Stonewall. That was
So, but Andrew Jackson is the data architect, which is kind of like Mike Brady was on the Brady Bunch, but not with data, but with Holmes. Kevin
By the way, that's Brian Sipes' particular discipline.
Yep, and Kevin Lewis.
He's an architect.
He is an archetype. Kevin Lewis is a software developer for the Browns. I mean, they have the whole. I mean, if you look at the sheer number of positions, it's more than the Kama Sutra. Okay.
Hams, your thoughts.
We're still struggling for news. All right, and I'm feeling bad for Cleveland.com. I don't know if you realize that they laid everybody off. All of their reporting people, they are now strictly a farm out.
Out, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, a farm out. That's perfect for Mary Kay Cabbage for Brains.
Actually, if John Denver were still alive, he would love that.
Yeah, farm out, man. I think they got like 20-some reporters. I think at one point they just cleaned the whole office out.
Isn't it a shame that John Denver didn't live to see Farm Aid? Farm out! This headline, Tribe announcer Matt Underwood talks about his favorite dining choices.
Actually, he did. The very first, I think the first two, because they were 86 and 7 or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was still going, huh?
Yeah, he was still alive. He didn't crash his plane until like 93, 92, something like that.
It was funny. He was leaving, but it didn't turn out to be on a jet plane, which is really, really ironic, don't you think? A little too.
But still, he hated to go.
Yeah, I really do think. Yeah, but
Oh, babe, I hate to go.
so if you're interested in knowing where Matt Underwood likes to eat, you might want to ask yourself why.
Rick Manning quoted saying, "Who the hell cares?"
Yeah, I'm always one who talks about athletes becoming something after they're athletes. Do you remember Carlos Arroyo, the guy who played with LeBron James and the Miami Heat? He was a backup guard. Well, I mean,
Not really.
He came and he went. He came and he went. I mean, that's the life of being part of He's got a ring. But people don't remember Carlos Arroyo. But I want to say that Carlos Arroyo may have even played at. And I could be fact checked on this, but I want to say the school up in Spokane. Why am I blanking?
The University of Spokane, maybe?
No, the big basketball power nationally. That Gonzaga. I don't know, but Carlos Arroyo. Yeah, somebody look up where Carlos Arroyo played. But what I wanted to do was to be able to share with you what he's doing now, because I find that and it's really not terrible. I mean, it's not like he's doing something that's awful. It may not be your cup of tea. So with that in mind, we will go to the video and put this up. And babinga, here we go. Carlos Arroyo, baby.
It is alive.
Acércate, pégate a mí, no puedo aguantar desde que te vi. Sé que no me conoces, pero ya estoy pa' ti. Ya para de ocultar que tú me quieres a mí. Say you baby. Baila conmigo, pegadito así, pórtate mal. Baila reto, si te gusta así, más te voy a.
Shakira.
I love how the directors all have the singular name.
Well, that's chic.
Directed by Gus. nickname just Gus. We dug up the donkey to
All right.
direct the music.
So, Rox, what do you get? What do you give it? Well, 0 to 10. What do you give it?
About a 4.
All right. Well, you know, that means he is actually a better singer than he was a basketball player. So it's a step up.
So he studied at Florida International University.
Oh, that's right. He went to Florida International.
Well, that's right next to Spokane, so.
Yeah, I couldn't have been much further off.
Jeez, you were this close.
Oh my God! So that's interesting. No wonder he didn't get drafted very high. Florida International, and that sounds like one of those mail-in schools. You know, you get a diploma online. No offense, Brian. No offense. I know that in your neck of the woods there seems to be a real penchant for that kind of thing.
Which kind of thing?
Like the online education diplomas.
That like University of Phoenix slight.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm glad somebody was.
Well, actually, there is a real campus for the majority of the classes. So, like ASU has quite a bit of online classes, especially for this past semester.
They had a campaign, didn't they? Hooked on Phoenix worked for me.
That was a running joke in Seattle when the Sonics would always play the Suns. They'd had a guy that could do the perfect Charles Barkley impersonation. And I just got to tell you, I love my Hooked on Phoenix.
Well,
This time I thought it was Pahonics.
So here we go. We know that money talks, bullshit walks, all right? So Forbes magazine has named 2020's highest paid athlete list. Who is number one? Let's see if anyone on our panel gets
Ronaldo.
it.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
No.
Oh,
No, it's that other kid. I think it's the other one from the Brazilian team.
Oh,
Messi?
No. I couldn't believe it because those are the two I guessed first. Now, I will say that it's very close between the top three.
I know it's not a Formula One driver anymore.
Nor a Formula 2 or 3.
Because those guys are right around the $30 million mark.
I'll tell you, the number one guy made 106.3. Ronaldo made 105. Messi 104. Compare that, Neymar 95 and LeBron 88 million. Steph Curry 74 million. All right.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods 62 million. So who's number one?
Isn't that Zlatan or anything, is it?
No, I mean, you're not going to believe.
is it
The
Michael
most-
Jordan and his shoe selling deal?
Unassuming, the most unassuming person you could imagine.
Peyton Manning?
No, if that were the case.
Current athlete, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Current athlete.
Current athlete. Okay. Shit.
I
have a feeling it's
stumped the
baseball,
panel.
Maybe in baseball.
Can you if
If
you
it was
name
baseball, it'd only be Trout. That'd be
Yeah.
about the only name I could come up with.
Moo, if you name drop the sport, is it going to be really easy to guess?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Don't. Is it baseball?
Oh, wait, so we don't.
So yes.
You
Okay, well,
McNugget
let's
eating
assume it's
freak.
baseball. Do y'all know anybody who's high paying in baseball other than Trout?
Michael Brown in the chat room is guessing Roger Federer.
Well, he Googled it. I mean, don't you love people who do shit like that and ruin it? Yeah. Roger Federer, the passive Swiss guy who has the efficiency of a watch. Yes. He is the number one earning athlete in the 2020 Forbes list.
Well, then he clearly has the price tag to match.
I mean, I was amazed at that. It's like, how did he get that much money? But I mean, you know, if you're in the right place at the right time and you are, you know, and he is.
Well,
as
he
far
had
as-
like he's got to have like 6 or 7 endorsement deals.
Oh,
Yeah,
huge. Yeah. The endorsements
Oh,
are where
yeah.
it's at for him. And the fact that he, from a European perspective, probably has just got gazillions of these endorsements. But I thought it was interesting. And the other thing, there are other things that are just as funny when you go down the list. Who's at 60 million? And this will have that there's no justice in the world. Kirk Cousins.
Wow.
Can you believe that? How can Kirk Cousins
Dude
be
got
making
paid.
damn near as much as Kevin Durant? How's that possible?
I agree.
Well, he got a guaranteed contract, and then he must be making.
He's taken a double dipped. He's had 2, is what it amounts to. 2 people willing to pay him long term.
How long was his contract for when he signed it? Like
4
5
years.
4 years?
4 years, and I think 27 or 28 million a year.
Oh
Jeez.
God, yeah, they overpaid his ass.
I mean, as
Well,
far
that's
as
guaranteed.
the highest single year earnings for a female athlete in the history of Forbes tracking, 37.4 million. Who was it?
Serena Williams.
Probably, yeah.
I would think
Probably
Serena.
Serena. With the
No,
clothing line and with all of
No.
her.
no,
No.
no. Now, could you believe that?
Wow.
It couldn't have been Sharapova.
No. Sharapova couldn't even make $25 going up and down the stairs in a motel. What the fuck? Naomi Osaka, tennis player,
Wow.
37.4 million. Now, you see, that's the thing that's really tricky about this.
Isn't
Who is
she
the-
like 18?
Yeah, I think she's 22 now.
Okay.
But and
She's
she's
really
got
young.
the Asian market, you see, which is very lucrative, and there just hasn't been that high a profile Asian player. So, she is the beneficiary. It's interesting. Who's the number one boxing guy earner?
Oh,
Just boxing, not UFC.
Yeah, right. Just boxing.
I'm going to say Mayweather.
Nope.
No.
Nope. Fury?
Yep. Tyson Fury, 57
Wow.
million. He's number 11 overall. MMA.
oh God, those guys have to be way down.
Yeah.
McGregor?
That's right. Conor McGregor, 48 million. He's number 16.
Yeah.
Can you believe that guy got?
But
48
some of
million?
those, some of
Yeah,
the
he
other
spends-
top-ranked fighters are way the fuck down there. Though.
And
He's probably
What?
spends 5 million of that on his legal fees alone.
got probably a lot of Irish whiskey endorsements too.
How about
He's
baseball?
got his own whiskey.
Who's the
Yeah.
highest baseball earner for the year 2020?
I think Mike Trout.
Nope.
No,
Really?
it's
Bryce
got to
Bryce
be that.
Harper.
No,
Nope.
yeah, the one from the Phillies.
Oh, Bryce Harper?
No, he
Nope.
just said no.
Because I thought he signed a long
Pitcher.
Kershaw?
picture.
Yep. Clayton Kershaw.
What?
That's right. Yep. 27.3 million. Yeah.
Wow.
And if you really want to know what's fucked up, so you say Kirk Cousins. Well, who's number 10? Carson Wentz.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, kind of hard to fathom, isn't it?
It pays to not finish the season.
It scares you. Like,
Oh boy.
Must be that icy hot endorsement he's got. I don't know.
It's good to be the king, huh?
well, it must scare you to know, like, depending on how Baker does this year, if he does even remotely, average to well this year, what his
Well, that's why I
number's going
said
to be,
It's going to be about 30 to 35 million.
Yeah, and I'll tell you honestly, if he has a good year, you can't, and this is what happens. A guy like Kirk Cousins has a good year, and he hits it at the right time, and he gets in the first time, and then he has good year. He re-ups, and he may never end up being that good a player, but who's Stafford? The guy for the Lions was the other one who just hit it right, the timing just perfectly. Matthew Stafford. So I mean that can happen.
Yeah.
So
And the only alternative is then if the only alternative is to not resign, and then we're back to square one if you use a high draft pick, first round draft pick on a quarterback. So
Yeah. I mean,
it's going to be interesting.
Well, it's 7:00 and time to rock. We've gotten through an hour, and I appreciate the efforts of all involved. And keep cool at home. You know, what I would tell you is don't get too revved up on what's going on. You know, I know that I'm backing off a lot of the social media stuff and not watching the network news because it is just a source of real depression, and it's hard enough when you're not getting out as much as you want to. You know, be smart about how you utilize media these days because it can be mentally unhealthy. You know, if you feel compelled to turn it on, do some form of exercise, you know, whatever that might be, you know, just do something that takes your mind off of the news just for a little bit. Thanks a lot to everybody. Yeah. What's up, Pat?
I was going to say, you could just be like me and blame the Illuminati. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, everybody's got to have an answer to this. That's right. And one size fits all for Pat. That works for him. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday with another edition of Moohead Radio. Take care, stay safe, and as always, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.